Hi, welcome to the final video in the structural element of the IB Paper 1 English series. Let's now look at how to write a conclusion. So, what is a conclusion and why is it important? Well, the conclusion is basically the end of your essay where you recap all your main points. In the conclusion, you aim to restate your thesis, restate the literary features you're looking at, and evaluate your essay with reference to the guiding question and perhaps maybe even some implications. A lot of the stronger essays will look at the implications. So basically, it's important to end off strong and leave a good impression on the examiner. If you have a poor conclusion, that can make even a really strong essay quite bad because the last impression the examiner gets is that you're not a good writer. And that's what they'll have in mind as they're deciding on a final grade. So it's really important to make sure you can write a strong conclusion. Writing a strong conclusion is actually quite simple and formulaic, unlike body paragraphs. So if you can master the conclusion, it's basically a free way to sort of get bonus brownie points in the examiner's mind. So let's just have a look at the conclusion structure. So here's an example guiding question. How does the tone shape meaning? So let's just assume this is for a random paper 1 text. I'll introduce some context a little bit later, but just keep this in mind for now. So with reference to this question, we have to restate the thesis. So we're basically answering how the tone shapes the meaning in one singular sentence. We're restating literary features. So we're answering how literary features shape meaning very briefly. So don't repeat your whole essay here. Just have a one or two, maximum two-liner, but I'd recommend a one-liner stating how the literary features shape the meaning, and then just have 1 to 2 sentences briefly evaluating something like, is the tone effective in shaping meaning? What are the broader implications of the tone? I don't really know. So anything sort of works. Anything that shows you're being perceptive and you're digging really deep. And make sure that you only repeat whatever you've said in the body paragraphs. Do not introduce new ideas, do not introduce new evidence, analysis, none of that. Your conclusion is just to wrap things up. So, step 1 to writing a really strong conclusion is to just restate the thesis. Now, restate the thesis doesn't mean copy paste it or write it down word for word. It just means convey the same general meaning in the first sentence of your conclusion. So just reword it to sort of reflect the analysis that you've guided the examiner through. So, for example, if the thesis were the author's tone shows how isolation impacts the character, the restated thesis could be ultimately the author's tone emphasizes the profound effect of isolation on a character's psyche, sorry. And the ultimately here signals to the examiner that you are concluding. So you could also say in conclusion, something like that to indicate that this is now the conclusion and you're wrapping everything up. And then you're basically just restating this text, this line up here, right over here. Next, you just have to restate the literary features. Just write down the names of the 3 literary features you analyzed in your essay and make sure not to repeat your essay. Just state their impact in a sentence. So maybe 15 to 20 words at most. For example, you can say, through symbolism, imagery, and tone, the text conveys their loneliness as they voyaged through Africa. So it's just a very, very brief description of the 3 literary features and what they did. Now we look at the step 3, so evaluate. All you're doing here is answering the so what or the why question. You could link to the theme, the context, or the reader's impact in order to make your evaluation stronger. That's how you could perhaps gun down the level 6 or level 7 marks. So, for example, for an evaluation, you could say, hence, through the article, the writer reveals the universal struggle of human connection and isolation. So, again, just a short and sweet sentence, which basically just says that the implication of what the writer is doing. So, let's look at a practice conclusion for the guiding question. So what we're looking to do is restating the thesis in orange, restating literary features in pink, and evaluating in blue. So ultimately, the text highlights the profound effects of isolation on the character's sense of self. So here, we're restating the thesis. This is the main idea. Now, I haven't explicitly said tone, and there's a reason for that. So in IB English, the guiding question is entirely optional, and although the exam paper is designed so that it'd be easier if you use the guiding question, you don't strictly need to. However, if you did want to use it and focus solely on tone, you could simply simply say the text tone highlights. But if you're doing tone and two other literary features, which is what I'd recommend, you can just say the text highlights and then bring tone in on the next sentence. So now on the next sentence, which is where we restate the literary features, we pretty much just say, through the use of vivid imagery, symbolism, and a reflective narrative tone, the author conveys the emotional and psychological consequences of being cut off from others. So here we've said the three literary features: imagery, symbolism, and tone, and the impact of those three literary features in a very, very short amount of space. Lastly, we're looking to kind of evaluate everything, so bring the broader implications into the sort of mix here. So this is in blue. This exploration not only deepens our understanding of the character's inner world, but also speaks to the universal human experience of seeking connection and understanding. In doing so, the text encourages readers to reflect on the ways in which isolation shapes identity and perception. So here I've had two sentences. I would say that in mostly this sort of sentence here is not strictly necessary because it's sort of something you do in the body paragraphs, but there's no harm in having these sort of things. In fact, I'd assume that because this is slightly more perceptive and deeper, it would fetch maybe a mark or more, or at least some brownie points in the examiner's notebook. But there's nothing wrong with doing something like this. If you have time, please do go for it. But if you don't, this sentence here suffices because it tells you the broader implication. But this sentence here sort of sets it up for it. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. So, to recap, all you need to do in the conclusion is restate your thesis and don't copy and paste. That's one of the biggest mistakes you can make. Restate the literary features and evaluate the sort of broader implications. And if you do those three things, then you're set. The conclusion's very formulaic, and it's hard to sort of mess up if you follow this general structure. Thanks for watching, and I hope this video helped you.